Hey, let me know in the comments below if you guys would like me to cover the Cartoon Network Invaded event for a big giant video. I'm kinda curious to see if there's any interest in that.
Whopper, Whopper.
What the dog doing?
Four big guys.
Okay guys, I get it. Cartoon Network Invaded, an extravagant month-long crossover event featuring 5 of the network's most popular shows. From May 4th to May 28th, 2007, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ed, Edd and Eddy, My Gym Partner's a Monkey, Camp Lazlo, and Billy and Mandy were invaded by extraterrestrial beings from the great beyond in search of cheese, the dairy product crafted in a wide range of flavors, textures, and forms by coagulation of the milk protein casein. But you don't need to know any of that nonsense, come on. Unless you're a vegan, or you're lactose intolerant, or you have some type of allergy, or I guess if you just don't like dairy, you've eaten cheese before. You know cheese. You love cheese. And so do these little guys. These aliens had traveled far and wide from cartoon to cartoon in order to find and capture cheese. Okay, so back when I was a kid, seeing my favorite shows cross over for special episodes was pretty exciting. I mean, I remember being ecstatic over the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour trilogy, the iCarly Victorious crossover, Rugrats Go Wild, The Grim Adventures of the Kids Next Door, and of course, Cartoon Network Invaded. Man, I was so hyped for Cartoon Network Invaded as a kid. I mean, 7-year-old Jonathan was probably pissing and crapping his pants at the thought of aliens being on his TV screen. However, I'm not 7 years old anymore. I'm 23, and I haven't seen any of these Invaded episodes in over a decade. And so a couple weeks ago, I became very curious. I was curious as to whether the Cartoon Network Invaded event held up over the last 16 years or not. And so I decided to go back and rewatch all of those old Invaded episodes. And today, I not only want to break down this Invaded event with all of you guys as a whole, but I also want to break down each Invaded episode and just talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about them, in order to determine whether Cartoon Network's Invaded crossover was a huge pile of crap and not exactly like how I remembered it, or being a true masterpiece and the greatest crossover in the history of mankind. So hey, if you're excited to dive into the Cartoon Network Invaded event with me, then leave a like on the video and buckle up, Buttercup, because it's time to get probed. I mean, damn it! It's time to explore Cartoon Network's Invaded crossover event. Okay, so first of all, what even sparked Invaded? Well, according to Maxwell Adams, the creator of Billy and Mandy, the crossover event happened because Kraft, you know, the mac and cheese dudes, sponsored it, which is why the aliens in each episode are super obsessed with finding cheese. So Cartoon Network executives asked the creators of each series picked for this promotion to create an alien special. However, Kraft backed out at the last minute and nobody knows why. But despite Kraft backing out, the event moved forward, which apparently didn't excite any of the show's creators. Craig McCracken, the creator of Foster's Home, explained years ago that nobody on board was excited for this event, but they had to comply with the network's demands. And well, spoiler alert, after watching all of these Invaded episodes, some of which I haven't seen in over a decade, I could sort of feel the lack of excitement in some of these creations, which I guess is a bit of a contradiction because how can you feel something that isn't really there? Obviously, I'll talk more about my thoughts and views on each specific Invaded episode when we cross that bridge. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about the atmosphere and background of the event. So the really weird part about this entire event is that it wasn't even a traditional crossover. Personally, when I think of a crossover, I think of No Way Home, the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour, even Fortnite. 2 or more universes colliding, characters from different worlds on screen together at the exact same time, talking or fighting with each other. However, that's not really what happened here with Invaded. There are some brief instances of characters from other shows making non-speaking guest cameos, and there are also a few little Easter eggs that bridge the gaps between each of these shows even more, which we will cover when it comes time to breaking down each Invaded special. There's also the fact that each of these shows share a common enemy, which are multi-eyed floating alien crab creatures that sort of remind me of the Yokians from Jimmy Neutron, who fly around in UFOs and constantly mention cheese. But unlike in No Way Home, for example, there wasn't like a scene in which characters from all of these different shows fought together to stop the aliens. Instead, each show's alien plot existed within its own isolated bubble. But nevertheless, the occurrences in each episode had an impact on the overarching invaded storyline. God. So while not being a traditional crossover, the idea of having an overarching story between 5 completely different shows is still very unique to me. I think what also made this event pretty special was that it came right at the tail end of when Cartoon Network's city bumpers were officially pulled from the network. I mean, those bumpers were super cool because they showed us an entire CGI city littered with tons of characters from all different kinds of Cartoon Network properties. And this alien event really made it seem like the entire Cartoon Network city was being invaded. And this invasion was like a final hoorah for the city era of the network. The marketing for this event was pretty interesting as well. 3 aliens named Sklurvs. Jesus hentai Christ, I hope that's how you pronounce that name. Peaches and Glog, voiced by Ben Amick, Tom Kenny, and Jason DeMarco, essentially hijacked the Cartoon Network headquarters and made it out to be this big worldwide invasion, which was pretty cool. These guys appeared frequently in the bumpers between shows, and I believe their presence really added some extra zest to the event. The network also released 5 invaded-themed flash games based on each series involved. Ed, Edd n Eddy's Toy Twister, Foster's Home, Outer Space Trace, Camp Lazlo Beamed, Billy and Mandy's Magnet Face, and my gym partner's Lighten Up. Out of all these games, I only ever remember playing Toy Twister, so if you've played any of the other 4 games, let me know in the comments below how good they were. Anyways, the crossover idea was pretty unique. Having several flash games based on each invaded episode was pretty cool. The bumpers were spectacular, but now let's focus on what really matters, which are the invaded episodes themselves. The invaded event officially began on May 4th, 2007 with Cheese A Go-Go, the first episode of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends Season 5, and the first entry in this alien arc. What happens in this episode triggers the beginning of the end. So buckle up, Buttercup. In the first entry of the invaded event, we have the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends episode, Cheese A Go-Go. So Frankie is busy at a post office preparing to ship some packages. Those packages are actually addressed to 4 characters, not from the Foster's Home world, but from the worlds of the other invaded shows. Like the pink package is addressed to Adam from My Gym Partner's a Monkey, the tiny green package is addressed to Clam from Camp Lazlo, the purple striped box is for Jimmy from Ed, Edd n Eddy, and the blue box is for Billy's action figure, Dr. Brainiac, from Billy and Mandy. Now there is one more package, but it's not from Frankie. It's from the person in front of Frankie, and this package wasn't addressed to any character involved in the invaded event. Right at the very beginning of the episode, a package for a person named Saul Malone is being stamped, and his address reads 1134 William Street, Centerville, Georgia. Does that sound familiar to some of you? Wait, really? Geez, I figured it did. The address, William Street, is in reference to Williams Street Productions, which is the in-house production arm of Adult Swim. And Saul Malone is the main character of the Adult Swim classic, Saul of the Mole Men, which is a series I'm literally working on a video for as well, which will be coming up very soon. But why is there a Saul of the Mole Man reference in Foster's Home of all places? Well, one of the former writers for Foster's, Craig Lewis, created Saul of the Mole Man, which makes this a really awesome Easter egg if you're a fan of both shows. Anyways, Frankie is sending out packages to the other invaded shows when she comes across Cheese being, well, Cheese. But she ignores him and goes about her business trying to send these packages and to also get some stamps from Madam Foster. Later on, she realizes that Cheese is causing chaos on the streets and shouting, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, repeatedly. So she gets out of the bus, grabs a hold of Cheese, brings him onto the bus, and offers to take him wherever his little heart desires after she is finished running her errands. Next up, Frankie and Cheese pick up Mac and Blue from a movie theater, where they are watching a science fiction film about brain-sucking aliens. They also pick up Eduardo and Coco from a dentist clinic where Eduardo is very, very high, and loopy from anesthesia. Not fully being in control of himself, Eduardo starts to make references to the Alien movie that Blue saw in theaters. Blue then reads a tabloid newspaper about an alien invasion featuring an alien that resembles Cheese, and suddenly becomes convinced that Cheese is a hitman from an extraterrestrial organization planning an invasion on Earth. So after the dentist fiasco, the group heads to the courthouse where Wilt is defending Madam Foster against Jackie Cones over a sandwich dispute. Hey, who's that little guy hiding in the corner of the screen? Yep, that's right, it's Fred Fredburger from Billy and Mandy. So the gang arrive to the courthouse. Frankie insists that Mac and Coco go ahead into the courtroom, and then she tells Blue to stay on the bus with Cheese and Eduardo, but Blue disobeys because he's a Sigma male, and takes Cheese to an observatory tower, believing that he can contact the aliens from there. Eduardo is also loose in the streets, making everyone very, very uncomfortable. There's also this guy who shows up. Don't worry about him though, he's just an innocent drifter or prostitute or something. Anyways, the court case was dismissed because Mac and Coco showed up a little bit too late and Jackie won the case. The rest of the group returned to find the trio gone and the bus being towed away. So what are they gonna do? Well, Jackie, Coco, and the police officer who writes Frankie a ticket go get sandwiches. Meanwhile, Frankie and Wilt split up to find Blue, Cheese, and Eduardo. And Mac and Madam Foster try and round up the bus, and by try, I mean this.
You need to go before the judge.
Okay, so Mac and Madam Foster are now detained. Let's see how Wilt's doing.
Oh, I love you, bro.
Oh good, Wilt found Eduardo, but both of them are also being detained.
Now everyone knows I'm fine.
Well, maybe Frankie's having a better time. Okay, maybe not. So Frankie finds Cheese and Blue hijacking an observatory. Frankie grabs Cheese and takes him back to his owner. And Blue is arrested for committing several war crimes throughout Saudi Arabia. Oh wait, Jesus Christ, that's the wrong script. Blue was arrested for hijacking an observatory and using its resources to contact aliens. Jackie and Coco are also arrested by the police officer that went out with them before to get sandwiches because they refused to pay for his sandwich. The episode then ends with Napoleon Dynamite trying to uncover a signal from outer space, and as it turns out, Blue did manage to contact aliens, and well, now the aliens want Cheese. So this entire invasion began because Blue went full-blown conspiracy mode. So this was the first time I watched an episode of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends in like over 10 years, and wow, this particular episode just drove me a little bit insane. Foster's Home was one of the many shows I frequently watched while growing up, and I do remember really liking the series a lot. Like, Blue's witty and snarky remarks really influenced a lot of my humor and jokes today. However, Season 5 and Episode 1 and the first entry in the Cartoon Network Invaded event, Cheese a Go-Go, was pretty obnoxious if you ask me. Like, listening to the phrase, gotta go from Cheese about 512 times gave me a headache and made my balls hurt. Also, watching Frankie slowly fall apart throughout the entire episode was pretty sad to witness. Like, I really feel bad for her character in this one. Other than that, the episode was good. Definitely not my favorite episode of the series overall, or my favorite episode of the Invaded event, but it was a good setup, and included a lot of neat Easter eggs as well.
No, not the Ottoman!
So the next series that was invaded was Ed, Edd, and Eddy. The Eds Are Coming premiered on May 11th, 2007, and it was 20 minutes of awesome. You know, I'm a bit biased because I liked Ed, Edd, and Eddy a lot growing up, and I do vividly remember being blown away watching this episode premiere all of those years ago. This episode is without a doubt my favorite of the invaded bunch, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So the basic plot synopsis is that Jimmy had a dream that went from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. At first, everything is all peachy and saturated, but then things take a dark, twisted turn when excavators and robotic tentacles fall from the sky and onto the cul-de-sac, ripping it away from the earth, stealing Sarah, and leaving Jimmy in a state of disarray. But as the rapper Nelly once said, "It was only just a dream." The cul-de-sac was intact, Sarah was safe, and aliens were far, far away from their world. As it turns out, Jimmy probably had a terrible nightmare due to eating the present that Frankie from Foster's Home sent, which was an entire box of Belly Bomb bonbons. So Sarah tries to distract Jimmy, but it seems like he has some PTSD. That dream must have been really wild, but once again, as the rapper Nelly once said, "It was only We then cut to Johnny and Plank looking for a rutabaga. Not knowing what the hell a rutabaga even is, they head over to Rolf's place to figure it out, and we never see them again. Just kidding, both Plank and Johnny survive the radiation and warn everyone in the cul-de-sac about how aliens are allegedly inside of Rolf's home. Jimmy jumps to defend Johnny and Plank while the rest of the kids investigate the situation. It isn't until Ed crawls out from a meteor resembling a ball of cheese shot out of Rolf's chimney when the gang realizes that aliens might be a true threat to their way of life. So they band together, study comic book aliens, build weapons, armor, and take on Rolf's house. And just when it seems like Eddie is about to become a filthy, stinking rich it's revealed that Rolf is very much alive and is just spending some time with his extended family from his native land. Everyone is safe and alive, except wait a minute, no they're not. Naz is still tied up. Oh yeah, and the cul-de-sac is being abducted by aliens as well. So like I said previously, this was and still is my favorite of the invaded bunch, although I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't show any real aliens in this episode. I did enjoy the story a lot though. All of the cul-de-sac kids banding together, trying to save their friend using homemade weapons and gadgets, that concept really reminds me a lot of the Kids Next Door, which, speaking of that, why didn't K&D get an invaded episode? That would have been so cool. I would have taken a K&D special over My Gym Partner is a Monkey or Camp Lazlo any day. Yes, we're going to talk about the alternate ending of Invaded. I promise. Nonetheless, the Ed edition of Invaded looked great, smelled great, and I wouldn't put it any lower than first place on my list. Next up on our list is My Gym Partner's a Monkey, with the invaded episode, That Darn Platypus.
Is it me or just my pretty face?
So much like Foster's Home, I haven't seen My Gym Partner's a Monkey in over a decade, and honestly, I don't remember being the biggest fan of it. I mean, it was good, but I could have lived without it. So going into the third invaded special, That Darn Platypus, which premiered on May 18th, 2007, I wasn't holding my breath. And, not to my surprise, it wasn't great. But it wasn't terrible either. I kept my expectations low for this episode, and I basically got what I expected. A 20-minute episode that would have been better as an 11-minute episode. So That Darn Platypus starts out with a power outage. The town's electricity is out, which forces everyone to walk to their destinations, and for some reason, this sounds less like a normal power outage and more like the entire town was EMP'd or something. Maybe aliens? Maybe North Korea? I mean, who really knows? Anyways, Adam, Jake, Windsor, and Slips take the walking bus to school. While walking to school, Windsor shows the guys a magazine showcasing a recent cul-de-sac abduction, with the Ed Boys making a quick cameo on the cover, referencing the events of the previous week's Invaded special. Also, Jake is pretty suspicious of the power outage, believing it to be aliens as well. Over at Charles Darwin Middle School, a new platypus student named Rick arrives, voiced by the legend Gilbert Gottfried, may he rest in peace, and tries to convince everyone that he is an alien by mentioning brain juice and spewing a bunch of other alien propaganda around. He is also seen eating cheese inside of Adam's locker, which, speaking of Adam's locker, it looks like he received his package from Frankie as well. Anyways, everyone falls for the alien rumors except for Adam, who sees through the lies and realizes that Rick is just a normal platypus. Or is he? In the boiler room of the school, Rick transforms into a floating, multi-eyed alien, which scares Adam out of the boiler room and up the stairs to meet with everyone else, and cower in fear as death slowly creeps up the stairs. Soon enough, Rick opens the door and reveals that he isn't really an alien. He just likes tentacles and flashlights and brain juice, which is just a regular drink. So, was he really an alien? Probably. I mean, he flies away in a saucer at the end of the episode. Also, there's a UFO scene on the computer screens of the computer lab or communications room, whatever this place is, where Rick was basically trying to contact the mothership. Like I stated previously, in my personal opinion, I believe this episode would have worked way better with an 11-minute runtime. I mean, I feel like the episode just drags on. The characters are great though, like I forgot that Tom Kenny voiced Jake the Monkey, so that was a treat. And hearing Gilbert Gottfried again was magical as well. I really enjoyed the B plot with Principal Pixie Frog and Mrs. Warthog as well. It was an okay episode for the most part, definitely the lowest on my invaded list so far, but I have a feeling this is probably not the best episode of My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Maybe one of these days I'll give the series another chance. But the episode did its job. It did a decent job at illustrating to the viewers that an alien invasion is pretty much imminent. So let's take a look and see how Camp Kidney handles the invaders.
There
So Camp Lazlo's Invaded special is, well, special, because we technically have 2 episodes which premiered on May 26th, 2007. Strange Trout from Outer Space and Cheese Orbs. Just like my gym partner in Foster's Home, I haven't seen this series in over a decade, and may I just say, what an underrated gem. A weird gem, but a good one. However, these episodes are kinda meh. So in terms of Strange Trout from Outer Space, Samson is abducted by extraterrestrials in a UFO who express an interest in cheese. Despite subjecting Samson to torture, the aliens soon realize that he is an unsuitable hostage and eject him from their spacecraft. Meanwhile, 3 new Bean Scouts, who seem to be Canadian, arrive on the scene. Samson mistakes them for aliens and attempts to gather evidence to prove his theory with the help of some background characters. Eventually, the aliens, in quotes, steal some cheese and depart in a car, but the 3 background characters who aided Samson are later revealed to be the true aliens in disguise. They're pissed that the cheese was taken by the Canadians, and so they board their ship and depart for Acorn Flats. Thus concludes the Strange Trout episode and begins the Cheese Orbs episode. The Acorn Flats campers are preparing for their annual International Cheese Ball. Unfortunately, Patsy cannot attend due to her cheese allergy. However, Nina comes up with an invention that shields Patsy from cheese molecules, allowing her to attend the event. A car of sorts. But despite Nina's best efforts, Patsy crashes the vehicle, destroys it, and the crash leaves her hair in ruins. Patsy is pretty upset with Nina and takes off with Gretchen. Later that night, Nina encounters the aliens from the previous episode and invites them into her lab, where she engages them in some board games and tells them about the cheese ball. Meanwhile, Patsy wants to forgive Nina and have things go back to normal, but Nina is more happy with her new alien friends. So Patsy and Gretchen try a multitude of ways to persuade Nina to ditch the aliens and come back to the friend group, but to no avail. But in a drastic attempt to win Nina back, Patsy and Gretchen sneak into the cheese ball room before it opens to the public and basically stuff Patsy's face with cheese to make her have an allergic reaction, changing her appearance to resemble a new, cooler alien of sorts in order to get Nina's attention, which works. However, there is no more cheese, which pisses off the aliens even more and scares away everyone in attendance. I definitely wasn't a big fan of the Samson episode, though the plot twist at the end was pretty cool. The Lazlo alien saga slightly picked up in the Cheese Orbs episode though, at least in my opinion. I feel like we definitely got more out of the aliens than in the previous episode. Camp Lazlo, despite it being a very weird TV series, was also pretty delightful to watch, at least from what I remember, but I'm gonna throw both of these episodes right below that darn platypus. Great animation. I loved how the aliens made a physical appearance this time in one of the shows instead of being either just a shadow or a silhouette, but these episodes aren't the best of Camp Lazlo's catalog, and they sure as hell aren't going to beat Foster's Home, Ed, Edd and Eddy, or even the final Invaded special that I'm going to talk about next.
Take that, corn! Yeah, I'd stay down if I were you!
So this is where it all ends. The Invaded finale. The special Billy and Mandy episode, Billy and Mandy Moon the Moon, which premiered on May 28th, 2007. The Grim Adventures was definitely one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows growing up. Like, it was up there with Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage, K&D, etc. And this Invaded episode really brought back a lot of great memories for me. I mean, the humor, the tone, the animation style of the series really took me back to a happier time in my life where I wasn't tied down by responsibilities, stress, and anxiety. The episode begins with Billy getting knee-deep in some booger sugar with the help of his action figure, Dr. Brainiac. While doing so, he begins to crave a hunger, a taste for adventure. Luckily, the meal he's been dying to swallow was just outside his home in a cornfield. So Billy sneaks out to investigate the cornfield, which happens to be littered with crop circles. He then runs into Spurg, who is the culprit behind the crop circles. And as it turns out, these circles were created because Spurg enjoys beating up corn. Thank goodness! Someone else on this godforsaken planet hates corn as much as me. Anyways, both characters are eventually abducted by aliens and are turned into experiments and test subjects. The next morning after the abduction, Billy, his mom, father, Mandy, Grim, basically everyone on the planet realize that their dairy products are missing.
This sounds like the kind of mystery that can't be solved in 11 minutes.
Fourth wall break. While this is happening, Billy explains that aliens are using mind control to steal cheese from Earth because they used up all of the cheese on the moon. Nobody really believes Billy until he shows them the UFO he was abducted in and, also hijacked. As it turns out, Billy has a chip planted in his head. His Dr. Brainiac figure is now alive. Spurg emerges from the wreckage of the ship and finds out that he has a tiny bomb inside of his head, which is set to expire in 12 hours. And also, Billy is really great at karate. Ding dong, what's this? It's the aliens, baby, and they're taking over the world. Oh look, it's a present. Maybe these aliens aren't so bad after all. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, never mind. The aliens sent down a baby monster, which turns into a big monster and assaults Billy and the gang with cheese whiz from its armpits. God, that's gross. Wait, why don't the aliens just use the cheese from their armpits instead of stealing the Earth's dairy products? Yes, I know, we're going to talk about that ending, don't worry. Billy then explains that the gang need to assemble a team of dairy superheroes to stop the aliens. However, everyone is 110% opposed to that idea. And then it's revealed that the episode, possibly the entire Invaded saga, is being told as a story by Sir Raven, that dashing bastard. Eventually, the 4 characters are captured and taken on a space tour, where it's revealed that once the alien moonbots are finished rebuilding the moon using the stolen dairy products, the moon will become full, and the aliens will turn into werewolves in order to conquer the Earth and eat the human population, then replace the missing humans with cardboard cutouts. Then the stolen cheese will be replaced with cardboard cutouts as if the aliens never invaded. Wow, this plot is just amazing, by the way. It's here where we see cutouts of Ed, Mac, Blue, Dexter, and Number 2. So Grim, Spurg, Mandy, and Billy are thrown into a pit and are forced to fight to the death for the aliens' entertainment, but miraculously escape and sneak onto a ship. Mandy reprogrammed the moon-building robots off-screen to work twice as fast so the ship wouldn't make it to Earth in time before the aliens were turned into werewolves. And, well, the aliens turn into werewolves, Billy ends up getting bitten by one, which turns him into a werewolf as well, because that's how it works. All hope seems lost, and with 6 seconds left to live, Grim finally acts on Billy's plan by turning everyone into dairy superheroes. The gang slaughter the werewolf alien empire. Meanwhile, Spurg sacrifices himself and blows up inside the control room of the ship, which sends it crashing back into the moon. The episode ends with Spurg living the rest of his life without a head, Grim and Mandy fighting other alien colonies, Billy spending some quality time with his family, and Sir Raven, oh Jesus Christ, that's gross. And the end credits show Dr. Brainiac receiving and opening his package from Frankie, which contains a sweater. This is the only time in any of the shows in Invaded where a character is seen opening up and reacting to one of Frankie's gifts. Overall, Billy and Mandy Moon the Moon was great. It wasn't the greatest Billy and Mandy episode ever, but compared to the other Invaded specials, this one is definitely number 2 on my list. To be honest, I really miss watching this series, like a lot. In fact, I kinda wanna binge it, and maybe make a video on the series, like an iceberg, or some other type of deep dive. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want that. So this event, believe it or not, has 2 endings. The first, or original ending, shows the Billy and Mandy aliens discussing how the invasion was a huge, colossal failure due to underestimating the intelligence of humans, talking about the many flaws of the plan like providing towels to subjects, how Earthlings are resistant to wedgies, and how the undercover alien agents, being Harold, Rick, Plank, and Puddin', failed to achieve their primary target. So they decided to capture 5 characters, 1 from each Invaded series, suck their brain juice out, and drink it to gain their knowledge. Except, the 5 characters held hostage happen to be the dumbest of each series. Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy, Slips from My Gym Partner, Cheese from Foster's Home, Skip from Camp Lazlo, and Fred Fredburger from Billy and Mandy. The alien general takes a swig of the brain juice produced and turns into a babbling idiot. Pretty simple ending. However, this next ending is pretty great, especially if you're like me and you wished that KND made some type of appearance or cameo in the Invaded event that wasn't just a cardboard cutout. So in the alternate ending of the Invaded event, the aliens decide to use their armpit cheese to patch up the moon themselves. Thank God. And for the most part, it works, until they end up trapped by the hands or legs or body of the cheese or whatever you want to call it, and they have to eat their way out. That's also gross. While the aliens are stuck inside their armpit cheese, we get a glimpse of the Kids Next Door moonbase with numbers 1 through 5 playing video games. Yes! We did it, Reddit! Let's go! So the Cartoon Network Invaded event didn't exactly live up to my recollection of it. It was decent, but not exceptional. While I appreciate the originality of the crossover concept, I think it could have been executed a little bit better. Perhaps if Invaded had been a full-length movie with a plot centered around the invasion of Cartoon Network City by aliens and all of the characters from each series coming together to defeat them, it would have been more memorable. But nevertheless, considering what it was good. Not perfect, but not the worst crossover I've ever seen. There were some standout episodes in the Cartoon Network Invaded event, such as The Eds Are Coming, Billy and Mandy Moon the Moon, and Cheese a Go-Go, but the Camp Lazlo and My Gym Partner episodes were a bit lackluster in comparison. I think another way Invaded could have been a little bit better is if it had included other shows that would have been a better fit for the alien plot, like Kids Next Door or even Ben 10. However, my opinion is insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and ultimately, we're all going to die, so it doesn't really matter. If you enjoyed Invaded and the episodes of each show, that's great. Let me know in the comments below if you do or don't. The marketing team executed an exceptional promotional campaign for the month-long invasion, and the bumpers were so convincing that I genuinely believed the network had been taken over by extraterrestrial beings. I appreciated the small character cameos and the plot surrounding Frankie's post office packages, which connected the shows nicely and made for a very entertaining scavenger hunt. The two endings were also impressive. Invaded was decent considering what it was, and I'm very grateful that I not only had the chance to experience this event as a kid, but now as an anxiety-ridden adult as well. Anyways guys, that about wraps up this very long Invaded video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, you found it entertaining, or you learned something new. If you did, be sure to leave a like and comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new around here. Click the bell icon to be notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. Follow me on all of my social links and join my sexy Discord server. Links are in the bio below. Have a great day, everyone. And remember that aliens are real.